Welcome to the Seven Figure Leaders podcast. This podcast was created to celebrate the success stories of seven-figure business owners, giving them a platform to share their insights and lessons learned in order to inspire other business owners. As well as that, it's an opportunity to build new connections. So if you're a seven-figure business owner or someone who works with seven-figure business owners and you're looking for introductions to potential stakeholders, strategic partners and clients, I'd love to hear from you or have you on as a guest and see if I can help make those connections for you. Just go to synergycfosolutions.co. That's synergycfosolutions.co and click podcast. And there you'll find the link to apply. Welcome, and today we've got Toby Henry, who runs Accelerator Solutions, a training company for small businesses. Welcome, Toby.
Hi, Tom. How are you? Nice to see you, and thanks for having me on.
Pleasure to have you. So, best place to start, why don't you give us a bit of an overview of what you do and who you help and the kind of the problems that you solve for your clients?
Yeah, sure. So I acquired Accelerator Solutions a year ago. So I've been running the business as CEO for the last year. So Accelerator Solutions, we're a learning development and research consultancy. We support businesses of all sizes in making their people better. So it's really about working with companies on their talent development, management development, and giving them the skills to adapt really to a world that feels like it's changing so much at the moment. And that's a lot of the work we do, is working with companies to make their talent better and support their businesses in their growth ambitions and creating working environments that are really nice to work in. That's kind of our purpose and goal.
Okay. And so what type of training specifically, and any kind of examples of the types of businesses you've helped?
Yeah. So we our primary focus is around kind of talent development and leadership development, but we also do a lot on service style development. So we are agnostic in terms of the companies and the types of companies, and our real focus is around the skills and behaviors. So we work a lot with service-based businesses, so management consultancies, legal firms, accountancy firms, where they're differentiating on their people themselves. So we have a real focus around how to make their people better at their jobs and how do they differentiate with their people when the people are the thing that they're selling. And we just focus a lot about relationships and trust and communication, and a real focus on the skills that are probably not going to be as disrupted by AI or technology change. We're seeing a real focus on people wanting to build that trust and relationship, and how do you do that in a very genuine way. We kind of differentiate from some of our competitors by everything we do is very tailored and bespoke. So we work with the businesses in partnership to develop training and research programs that are specific to them, their people, their clients, and we make them hyper contextual and as immersive as possible. So we just finished a piece of work with a consultancy where we took their promotion cohorts away for 2 days. We designed a case study that was real to life. We designed the modules that were specific to their career framework, but also skill set gaps that group had. And then we brought in very specific SMEs. So we brought in ex-barrister to talk through negotiation and influence. We brought in a professional comedian to talk about storytelling and building story narratives. And we brought in real clients for them to pitch to. And that's the type of work we love doing. That's really immersive, where people leave the 2 days feeling energized and they've got skills that they can apply in the real world the next day. And then we continue that program with coaching. So we don't just like to leave it in the room. We like to provide ongoing support to our clients. Companies spend a huge amount of money recruiting people and not that much in developing the people. And we try and solve that gap in supporting those people, because people are the greatest asset of most businesses, and the more you invest in them, the return will be greater for you as a business.
Absolutely. Sounds brilliant. And it sounds like there are a huge number of businesses that will benefit from having that kind of training. So what are the problems that they are experiencing before they start working with you? And how do you kind of position your services, or how do you find each other?
Yeah, it's most of our business comes in from referral and word of mouth. I mean, most of the clients that we have been with us for more than 10 years. And most of our clients are really happy to refer to even competitors, which is a very rare thing, and I think underlines the quality of the work that we do. But most of our clients at the moment are going through, and I feel this as a business owner, and I'm sure you do as well, where the world is changing so fast, and you're thinking, how do I differentiate myself? How do I differentiate my business? How do we keep up with that pace of change? And what skills are people going to need in order to actually be able to do their jobs? How do we create efficiencies? And learning and development gets a little bit of a bad rep because it can feel a little bit fluffy and soft, and it's about soft skill development. But the way we position it is it's really about giving the people in your business the skills and behaviors to help your business grow. So there is a direct return on investment. There's a reduction in people leaving the businesses. You get better work environments because people are happier. All pretty hard things to measure. But where our clients come to us, there's normally we know that our people have deficiencies in certain areas and we haven't invested in their skill development. So how can we expect the skill gap to close? And some you can learn on the job, and others you can really teach people and then follow on with coaching. And we're a big believer in, like I said, learning doesn't always just happen in the classroom or on a Zoom meeting or virtual. And we love face-to-face training, but we'd also do virtual training. But we always try and complement it with coaching elements to that, because coaching is really where behavior change happens. So the things that our clients are really worried about is, AI is a massive topic. How do they keep pace with that change? How do they give people both the technical skills to be more efficient in their jobs and understand it and not be scared of it, but also really doubling down on some of those human elements, making sure that people understand how to communicate effectively, how to build trust, how to sell credibly, how to, have a commercial mindset. They're all things that AI may do in the future. And it's a bit scary to think that it might be able to do that. But I'm a big believer in that human connection. And there are skills that we have as human beings that I don't think AI is going to be able to close the gap. So it's a lot of our clients are asking how we support them on that to help future-proof their people and their businesses.
I see. And so they are aware of the problem and the gap that they have in their organization. And that's why they come to you, as opposed to they're not really sure what the problem is, but they know they've got some kind of problem. And then they come to you and you diagnose the problem.
It's both, to be honest. Some of them have very clear views. We're working with a couple of clients at the moment who know that they're not doing enough in the AI space. So we've got a training that we run, which is a 1-day immersive, which is about bringing everyone in the organization up to the same baseline. And the afternoon is tackling a specific use case within that business and making it really tangible. There are lots of AI courses out there. There are lots of knowledge bases that you can get lost in, but we position ourselves as always being very practical and specific to you. So we've got some clients who know where the problem is. We have other clients who they know there is something missing, and what we do as a partner is we support them on that. We've got a number of kind of propositions that we work. One is called the Human Advantage, and it's really about working with an individual company and a group of people to understand specifically for them, identifying where the gaps are, and then defining and designing something that is very specific. So, for example, we had a company come to us and they just gone through some M&A activity. The culture was a little bit rocky in terms of, what people's futures look like. And they wanted to use learning and development, particularly some training, to regalvanize the business. So they kind of knew what they were looking for, but they didn't know how to approach it. And we partnered with them over a couple of months to help them reset what their culture needed to look like, and then drag that through the learning and development journey over a couple of months where we got people together both in person and virtually. But it was all very tangible. It was about how to galvanize regalvanize the company around a new vision and culture, but then also giving the people the skills to be successful in the next version of what that company looked like.
Yeah, brilliant. And you said you work with companies of all sizes.
Yeah.
And any typical size or typical profile?
So we're agnostic in terms of industry, but we do a lot of work in service-based businesses, like I said, so consulting, law firms, accountancy firms, where people are differentiating on the quality of their people and kind of the relationships and trust. We do a lot of work in construction. We do a huge amount within social housing, particularly on the service style. So with vulnerable customers and people within social housing, it's a really core element that we do. We work a lot in rail networks and distribution channels as well. But the problems are kind of consistent across both, which is why we work across any industry. From a size perspective, our smallest clients are 20 people, SME businesses, particularly on the AI side, where they're trying to get a competitive advantage and they're happy to invest on that side, up to FTSE 100 companies. So we work with, global pharmaceutical companies. We work with FTSE listed pension providers. And then it's really about finding, with those larger companies, it's about finding the teams and the groups specifically within that want to work with us, and we want to work with them.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so shifting gears a bit. So you acquired the business last September.
Yeah.
And you, before we press record, you mentioned that you're looking to firstly scale the business organically, but then also look to some more acquisitions. So perhaps you can elaborate a bit on what that was like, firstly in acquiring the business, and then your first few months as a business owner, and then kind of how things have been going since then.
Yeah, sure. So I acquired Accelerator Solutions last September, and I went on a bit of a slightly different journey, kind of pre-acquisition. So I worked as a consultant for a long time, and then worked in SaaS scale-ups, and got to the point in my career where the last couple of years wasn't particularly enjoying being in corporate world, and felt like I wanted to do something on my own, and fell into this whole rabbit hole of entrepreneurship through acquisition, search funds, and that was like the catalyst to be able to actually go away and execute on something that I wanted to do. When I found Accelerator Solutions, it was a very good partnership for me. The founders have stayed in the business. It was the type of company that I felt like I could help grow and scale from my background and skill set. It's definitely taken longer. The first 3 months, I was in kind of watching and listening mode and understanding what the business did. I think it probably took me 6 to 7 months, although we're a fairly simple business on the surface of it. We're a people business, and that's really where the complexity lies, and working with clients. And probably took me 6 to 7 months to really get under the skin of what we did, why we did it, how we differentiated. Spent a lot of time talking to clients about why they worked with us and why they've worked with us for so long, which was really illuminating. And then the back end of the year, really the last 6 months, has been about how do we become more operationally excellent? How do we set ourselves up to scale, make some strategic hires in that space? So the kind of the angle is twofold. One is organic growth of this current business, and we've got plans next year. We're just setting our targets for next year. We've got a very clear path to our targets from a growth perspective, and that's primarily in two kind of avenues. One is doubling down on some of the propositions that I talked about and being a bit more clear on our go-to-market strategy and targeting our ideal clients and our current clients. And the other is continuing to do excellent work with clients. We get a huge amount of upsell and referrals on our existing clients, both into department and then just doing different work with them, which is a nice litmus test of that we're doing something right, which is great. And then we've had a really interesting spate at the back end of this year of our clients referring other clients who are probably competitors of theirs, but they're happy to share because, you know, it's all in good faith. And that's really great to see when you're doing such a great job with one client, they're happy to refer you to another client. And then the second part to the point you raised, we're starting to think about what does a second or third acquisition look like within the group. So Full Circle Capital is the holding company group, and Accelerator Solutions was the first acquisition. So we're looking at still kind of early days on that, whether it's a roll-up strategy of smaller learning and development providers, whether it's a bolt-on of an apprentice provider to provide a slightly different type of revenue, but still within the learning and development space, whether that's a more change management style consultancy. That's my background, so still got a lot of kind of contacts and expertise in that space, or whether it's a more of a platform business. So having some really interesting conversations with some AI coaching businesses, some LMS providers that would provide a slightly different revenue stream, which again, from a growth and scaling perspective is I think is that a bit of the holy grail. If you can create a business that has high margin service revenue with good platform like annuity revenue, then I think that's where my vision is, but it's going to take a little while and some effort to actually execute on it.
Yeah. Okay. And you've obviously acquired this. How big is the team at the moment?
So 15 people who are full-time, and then we have an associate group that we work with that's kind of 20 plus, depending on scale and the type of work that we're doing.
Okay. So naturally, I'm a fractional CFO, so I'm interested in the financing questions, cash flow and profitability and all that stuff. Yeah. So you presumably have an accountant, and we talked about this a bit previously. You have an accountant, you have a bookkeeper. Have you got someone in that CFO seat?
We don't have a CFO. We have a finance director who's been with the business for I think since the start, 23 years. She's fantastic. Her role has evolved and changed as well. So I think as the business has got more complex, one of the other things we spent quite a lot of time doing this year is just being very clear on people's accountabilities and roles and responsibilities. So we have an accountant who does our tax filing and that type of thing. And then we have our finance director who is the day-to-day person looking after finance, payroll, cash flow, investments, how we think about utilizing the money. And then we have like an accounts support as well, who does invoice chasing and kind of the more revenue recognition aspects of the business.
Yeah, brilliant. That sounds like a good setup. And so looking forward, have you got clear targets set in terms of revenue, profit, cash flow for the main business, and then a plan to actually do the future acquisitions?
Yeah, we do. So we're in just getting towards the end of our 2026 planning cycle at the moment. So we do have a revenue target that we're looking to hit next year. Very, very focused on gross profit. For us, it's because of the type of business we are. If we can get that balance right between delivering work with our internal team and flexing with our associate pool for specific bits of work, that's our biggest driver of gross profit. So we track our metrics weekly. We're starting to utilize EOS as a system from a scorecard and a metrics perspective, and trying to get a predictive view of what that looks like. And yeah, we have targets for net profit. This year has been a bit of a learning curve in terms of getting the balance right of associate use versus full-time use, looking at like the cost underlying the business, other efficiencies within our systems and processes and things like that. So we've got a much clearer view going into 2026, I think.
And you mentioned EOS there, which is really interesting, which is becoming a more frequently used framework. How long have you been using that for?
We had a bit of a soft entry into it probably January this year. Work with a guy called Rob Lydiard, who's fantastic. And we haven't kind of fully implemented it within the business yet, because we've been just playing around with the scorecard and the metrics and that side of thing. I think we'll probably look to double down on it properly as a system in 2026. But it's been really helpful. The key thing I've taken away from it is the clarity and responsibilities is the first thing. And the second thing is making sure those accountable people have metrics that they're tracked against, that you track on a weekly basis.
Yeah,
that has been a bit of a game changer. And we're kind of still refining what those metrics look like, because what we thought were the things that we needed to track as leading indicators, actually some of them aren't. So we're constantly refining that and making it as usable and scalable as possible, so we getting the right information into the business.
I went to an EOS event a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if you were there. I didn't see you there, but did you? No?
No, I wasn't there, no.
I mean, there are about 400 people there, so there's there's a good chance we didn't see each other if you were there. But yeah, well, one thing I thought was really interesting and something I learned from the day was that you have input KPIs and output KPIs. So it's all well and good giving a salesperson a target of generating X amount of new revenue. But that's an output KPI. You've also got to set input KPIs. So what is that person doing to maximize the chances of generating that 100K of new pipeline, or whatever the metric is, and getting very clear and granular on what those input KPIs are to make sure that they are doing the right inputs and essentially showing their workings, so that if they don't hit the output, then you can all go back to the inputs and work out what needs to be refined. So that was actually something I thought was really interesting. And then your future acquisitions, are you looking to raise more money from the top co to fund them, or have you thought about how you're going to do that?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle of that kind of planning cycle of what it looks like. There's probably a couple of elements to it. There is, depending on the size of the businesses and the type of businesses we acquire, I'm keen to get the mix right of, we have the ability to raise more into Topco. So go do an equity raise based on the growth ambition of Full Circle Capital as a group. I've got ideas in my mind about how much of that company I'm happy to give away to investors for that injection of capital. There's also the element of bringing in debt into the business. So depending again on the size of the businesses we acquire, the debt market I think is getting a little bit more buoyant than it was probably when I acquired Accelerator, but it's still quite difficult and seems a bit more risk averse than necessarily. I've talked to colleagues or ex-colleagues in the US who have gone down this route of acquisition, and they have the SBA vehicle to be able to acquire up to 90% of a business, which is a massive unlock, which we don't have in the UK, unfortunately, which makes debt a little bit trickier to find and quite expensive. And then the other part of it is, financing part of it through the cash flow of the other businesses. So the idea with entrepreneurship through acquisition is you buy a profitable business, which we have with Accelerator. So it's cash flowing. So the best way to utilize that cash may be to start looking at some smaller roll-ups. And the interesting thing is, in the sub 300K EBITDA range, they are almost impossible to finance through debt. Actually, they are impossible to finance through debt. So there's an education piece. So with the brokers that I work with and the people in the M&A world, there's a big education piece of those people trying to sell businesses, that there might have to be some seller financing, or particularly with service-based people businesses, some deferred element based on revenue targets. And I think a combination of those four things together is how I'm thinking about it. And it's just about finding the right acquisition targets and getting that balance right for each one as it flows up into the top co to make it a commercially viable proposition, both for me, but also anyone putting equity in as an investor.
Well, that sounds very exciting. And yeah, I completely agree with you. It's almost a completely separate conversation about the, I guess you could call it educational gap for small business owners that think they're going to walk away with 100% of the deal early on day one.
Yeah.
But yeah, not reality for, I mean, even slightly bigger businesses, it's not actually that common for them to walk away with 100% of the money on day one.
Yeah.
So, Toby, thank you very much for being a guest. Very much appreciated. So anyone who's interested in getting in touch with you, we'll make it very easy to do so. We'll put a link to your website in the notes.
Great.
So Toby Henry, founder of Accelerator Solutions. Anyone who's heard this and thought, right, we need Toby's team's training to support us on our growth journey, then get in touch with Toby. Toby, is there anything else you want to share before we...
No. I really enjoyed the conversation, Tom. Thank you. It's been slightly different from some of the other podcasts I've been on recently. So thank you for the insightful questions. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so if people want to follow me on LinkedIn, that's great, or just generally reach out on the website, Toby H at acceleratorsolutions.com. So if anyone's interested in understanding about what we do or just the journey I've been on to acquire a business, more than happy to have those conversations and chats.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Toby.
Awesome. Cheers, Tom. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this podcast was created to celebrate the success stories of seven-figure business owners, giving them a platform to share their insights and lessons learned in order to inspire other business owners. As well as that, it's an opportunity to build new connections. So if you're a seven-figure business owner or someone who works with seven-figure business owners and you're looking for introductions to potential stakeholders, strategic partners and clients, I'd love to hear from you or have you on as a guest and see if I can help make those connections for you. Just go to synergycfosolutions.co. That's synergycfosolutions.co and click podcast. On that page, you'll find the link to apply.